Today we're starting a series of sermons that will go through these stories in the 14th and the 15th chapters of Mark, stories of the last times of Jesus. We're calling this series Keeping Time, and we'll go through today the Last Supper, next week the Garden of Gethsemane, the denial of Jesus by Peter, Jesus' trial, his mocking, and finally his death on the cross. I think this is a nice way for us to sort of divide up Lent. We have a series of traditional readings in the lectionary that are read all around the world, which is a wonderful way to mark and celebrate the Sundays of Lent. But often these two chapters, these very important chapters of Jesus' trial and death, get all squished together in Passion and Palm Sunday or on Good Friday. So it's nice to be able to take some time. And I encourage you in your Lenten preparations to go home this afternoon and read these 14th and 15th chapters of Mark so that you sort of have some context. It doesn't take long, they're only a few pages long, but the 14th and 15th chapters of Mark tell us this full story of how Jesus died. One of the stories that has captured my attention, captivated my interest this week in the Olympics, which I'm sure many of you have been watching, is a young woman named Erin Jackson. Erin Jackson raced this morning at 6:56 this morning in the women's 500-meter long track speed skating competition. I haven't seen the results yet, unfortunately. It takes a little bit of time for these things to come through. But I do know that she was ranked an unimpressive 30th out of 31 skaters this morning. Her odds are not very good for ending up on the podium. It's rather unimpressive, that is, until you consider that Erin had not stepped onto the ice on skates until 2 years ago. She spent less than 4 months training in ice speed skating. But don't think that she hadn't been preparing for this for a long time. You see, Erin was a roller speed skater. She competes in the roller derby as well. And so in order to be able to compete in the Olympics, she made the transition over from roller skates to ice skates. Like many athletes, she's been preparing for a long time for this one moment to be on this grand stage of the Olympics. It's amazing the years and years of preparation that goes into these high-level athletic feats. I saw one grandparents took the reporters down into their basement where they had just walls upon walls of journals of their grandchild's athletic ability on skis from the time she was 5 years old all the way up. It takes years to prepare for such a feat. Today we hear this word preparation several times in our scripture lesson as the disciples are preparing for the Passover feast. This meal that would be eaten once a year, this meal that remembered the Lord's passing over those Israelite children who would not, like the Egyptian children, be killed in the plagues. The Lord passes over with this angel of protection. Preparing to eat the Passover feast would have been a rather big deal. That's why the disciples are concerned about it. They want to know where, knowing that Jesus was a good Israelite, a good Jew who practiced these things, they want to know where they should go to make these preparations. There were special foods that had to be eaten. They had to be eaten in a special way, sitting down, but yet ready to go for battle should that be needed. And so I can't imagine what a surprise it was for the disciples to discover that most of these preparations had already been made. The Passover feast would have been a meal that was eaten in preparation for the coming Messiah. Part of every Passover meal is opening the door. The youngest child in the family goes out to open the door to see if Elijah has returned, a sign of the coming of the Messiah. And so I can't imagine what a shock it was to find that this upper room had already been prepared for them. All the hard work has been done. All they have to do is prepare the meal. Yesterday afternoon, when I saw that it was starting to snow, I realized I probably should get out and do some preparations. Many of you probably had the same thought. Made sure that the snow shovel was ready on the side of the door, got out the salt from the basement, went out, sprinkled a little bit, shoveled early. But I forgot to prepare my car. So this morning I came out and there was just a lovely layer of 3 inches of snow covering everything, a hard layer of ice. Even in our best intentions, often our preparedness falls short in this world. Being prepared, as the Boy Scouts remind us on a regular basis, is a good thing to do. Expect the unexpected. Plan for the worst, but expect the best. We have lots of good advice in this world, but somehow our best laid plans are always thwarted. But being prepared in the biblical sense has a little bit of a different twinge to it. Part of the Passover feast is that you eat it with your family, or if your family's not large enough or too poor, you eat it with another family. You invite someone else in to the feast. Being prepared in the biblical sense always looks to the needs of the neighbors. Like Joseph in the famines, storing up storehouses so that not just the Pharaoh and the king would have enough to eat, but even the poorest in all the land. Being prepared in the biblical sense means that we save a little extra so that those who don't have enough can share in our abundance. Being prepared in the biblical sense means that we make sure we have not just enough salt for our step, but for our older neighbor's step. Or for someone who maybe forgot that their shovel had broken at the end of last season and hasn't gotten another one yet. Being prepared in the biblical sense means we look out for those who can't look out for themselves. I'm always amazed at how much preparation goes into the meals that we prepare here at Good Shepherd. Both our fellowship meals for ourselves and funeral meals, or the Goody meals. Almost a month out, we always have a sign-up genius that has what we need for that meal. At least a week before, food starts pouring in to our refrigerators, labeled nicely so we know what, hopefully, so we know what meal it goes with. So that when those teenagers come to be able to finally serve the meal, lots and lots and lots of hands have already touched that food to prepare it and bring it. That's part of what good Lenten disciplines help us to do. They prepare us so that we can serve Christ in the same biblical line of being ready to serve our neighbor. Good Lenten disciplines call to mind again and again the promises that God has made to us in this baptismal font. And in the end, it's not actually us who is doing the preparations. Here, Christ is eating this Passover meal to prepare for his death. In the end, it is Christ who is preparing for suffering and death on the cross. And ultimately, it is Christ who is preparing to come and to welcome us home. Nearly every funeral here at Good Shepherd, we read the verses from John 14. It says, "My Father's house has many rooms. If it were not so, would I not have told you that I go to prepare a place for you?" Jesus' disciples prepared the upper room. We prepare a place to welcome others in our world. But ultimately, Christ has already prepared a room for you. Welcome home. Amen.